Welcome to the Heal with Jill podcast. I'm your host, Jill Yeiter. Each week, I share one short, digestible episode to help you create clarity and ease in your wellness story. I'll be exploring self-care, intuition, mindfulness, intentional living, and more. If you enjoy a fresh perspective, agree that life is not black and white, and want to improve your relationship with yourself, then you're in the right place. Welcome back. This is episode 9, and today we are going to be talking about a fresh perspective on spirituality. And hopefully what I share with you, you can take anything that suits you and leave anything that doesn't. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is actually the 6th area on the Wheel of Health. We have one more area before we wrap up this section that we've been working on. So I define spirituality as attending to the practices that support the essence of who you are. So kind of like your inner being, your chi, your deeper self, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates with you. And so I realize that this may be a non-traditional approach to spirituality, and for many of you, organized religion is a huge part of what defined your spirituality, but it's just not the case for me. I grew up in organized religion, and I left it kind of in my teenage years, and I've never returned. It just does not provide an environment where I am able to access what is nurturing to my spirit. So it's not an essential ingredient for me, is what I'm saying, I guess. So for me, what is essential is aligning my behavior and my beliefs with my deep values. So some of my deep values include self-care, anything that's like related to looking after my body, independence. I have a high value on just being kind of a manager of my own time and my own ideas and how I choose to do things. And variety is something that I really value. So I've always kind of had multiple things going on at once, not so many that I feel overwhelmed, but just enough to keep things kind of interesting for me. And creativity is another one of my high value areas, and beauty. So I kind of touched on that in the episode about physical environment, but beauty is just something, whether it's creating my own home environment or being out in nature, that's something that I've always really valued. And learning is another thing that is one of my core values. So I value lifelong learning and personal development, which was, again, another area that we talked about. And this may or may not make sense, but I value essence. So what I mean by that is that I value kind of getting to the core of something, because I feel like when or I should say, I do that, it connects a lot of things together, and it immediately kind of dissipates a lot of the noise in life. So a lot of things in our life have crossover benefits. And so when we can get to the essence or core of something, like an idea or a skill, then we can apply it in lots of ways to make it helpful and useful for us. And then it becomes also integrated. So, and I value relationships. And this may not be a complete, conclusive list of all the things that I value, but it's the maybe the most important things and the things that came to mind first of all. So I also view my essence or my inner being as a combination of my mind, body, and spirit. So I actually find spiritual experiences in basically anything that I do where I'm deeply present. So I'm just going to give you a few examples. So because I value self-care, these practices that I'm going to share are related to the body aspect of mind, body, and spirit. So dressing in comfortable clothing that I enjoy is something that is actually kind of a spiritual practice for me, as silly as that sounds. That doesn't have to mean that it's um, super expensive or anything like that. It could be, but it's not right now. But it just means that it's something that I feel like kind of genuine and comfortable in, that I can move in, that I feel good in. So the next one would be walking or just any other movement that feels good to me. So today it happened to be kickboxing in my kitchen because it's raining outside. Planning and preparing food that I love to eat can be a really kind of grounding and spiritual experience for me. And this, again, may seem so simple, but I try to eat a salad every day and it kind of varies. Like recently, I've been eating just a green mesclun salad with mandarins and blue cheese and some olive oil and walnuts. Sometimes it's more of like a fermented food salad. It can really vary, but I try to have a salad every single day. Just that one little practice is kind of structuring and grounding to me. Um, the act of drinking tea can be really grounding and kind of spiritual and connect me to the moment. And taking a hot shower on a chilly morning is something that can be just, again, so simple, but feels good to my body and has kind of I think the water is, especially the ocean, but if I'm not able to get in the ocean, has a very specific kind of nurturing quality to it. So, and then because I value learning and independence and essence, these practices that I'm going to share with you next nurture my mind. And so, again, just to recap, I don't view kind of mind, body, and spirit as separate. I view them all pieces of the puzzle that make up my entire essence, and anything that supports my core essence or my inner being, it can be a spiritual practice. So things like reading, writing, problem solving. So something as simple as doing a Sudoku puzzle can be kind of, if you're stuck in a like mental loop, just doing something that's a little bit different, that's problem solving, that can be kind of therapeutic or spiritual. I find organizing and systemizing to be a really kind of calming and Zen-like experience for me. And I had mentioned learning as well. So personal development is really important. So learning is a important aspect of that. And then because I value creativity and relationships and beauty, these practices nurture my spirit. And so, of course, that is a spiritual practice. So being in nature, spending time with my friends and family, just creating something. It could be anything. It could be something to eat. It could be a podcast episode. It could be sewing or something, like in the tiniest way, like fixing a pair of pants, or just something that almost seems like nothing. And then teaching and sharing something is something that can be pretty connecting to the moment for me. And that's also kind of wrapped up with helping. And then dancing and listening to music are other areas that kind of fall into the nurturing of my spirit, and just being. So just permission to do nothing, to not accomplish anything, or it maybe sounds contrary, or create anything or organize anything, but to just be. So for me, the result of all of this includes feeling more peaceful and present, and just clarity in general about my life and visions, and feeling more connected to myself and others, and feeling connected to a greater good. And I might not have all the answers to what that greater good is, but I'm actually deeply okay with that. And surrendering just to the unknown, that's more challenging for me. And so what I mean by that, like when I say connected to the greater good, that maybe extends beyond our physical presence. And I'm okay without having all those answers. surrendering to the unknown, what I mean by that, and maybe it sounds backwards, but what I mean by that is just like kind of letting control of what comes next in the day to day. And then also, another result of all of this is that I'm able to create a safe haven for myself and those around me. So, a compliment that I often receive is that people feel safe around me and that the environments, both kind of physical and emotional, that I create um, provide a sense of safety. So, if you're feeling spiritually unwell, that might be synonymous with anxiety or depression. I don't know. I don't have that answer exactly for any of you, but for me, they are wrapped up together. So, mental health and attending to my spirit, my inner self, are all kind of intertwined. So, just try something simple. Maybe it's a walk or a bath or some tea. And, sometimes we like to make things really complicated, and myself included, with lots of rules and expectations. But, maybe helping your kid with their homework is spiritual. And as an added bonus, it's really practical as well. So just see how that settles and take what makes sense and leave what doesn't. And I will see you next week for the last area on the wheel of health, not the last podcast episode, but we will be discussing stress management. So thank you so much for joining me today. Take care and bye for now. Thanks for joining me this week on the Heal with Jill podcast. You can find all my free resources, including menu planners, mindful movement videos, and more, as well as my coaching and courses at healwithjill.com. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend and give it a rating. Take care and bye for now.